Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Um, we are so excited to partner with Extempore to bring you this webinar today from Avant Learning and Extempore. Grant Castner is joining me, who is a community manager at Extempore. Grant, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. There we go. I think you have to unmute for them to see you.
I was trying to unmute. That's all. Hi everybody. Great to be here. Looking forward to the webinar. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks, Dawn.
Today is going to be interesting. I want to just give everyone a heads up right as we're getting started. I have had a situation today with my internet that feels very much pandemic-ish and has caused some panic. So I am currently hotspotting for this webinar today. So should I disappear? I'm not offended by anyone. I just have lost connectivity and Grant will carry on until I can get back. So just want to make sure everyone knows, just in case something weird happens. So Grant, I'm ready to get started. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So we got about almost 50 people in now. We'll go ahead and just start rolling through the beginning, and then I think people are still kind of piling in right now. I am going to be sharing some links with you guys in the chat in just a few minutes. And I would love for you guys to just chime in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, maybe what your role is, if you teach, if you're an administrator, if you're a consultant, whatever it is that you may do, so we can kind of see who all is here. And so you guys can see if there's anyone you want to tap, who maybe some of you may be able to share some interesting ideas with us today, and we'll know who to go back to. You guys will all get a copy of the chat as well. So if there's anything you want to share or not lose, be sure to use the chat for that. Also, if you are a tweeter and you want to tweet online, please be sure and use the @practicalproficiency as our hashtag for today. Usually I try to tweet and do all the things during the webinar, but since I am limited today, I'm probably not going to be on Twitter. So you guys will have to get out there and get that going for me. Okay, so let me see if I can find with my little button over here. Come on, computer, maybe. Ah, there it is. Okay. All right. So my name is Dawn Samples. I'm here with Grant Castner, and our Twitter handles are here. I'm at AD Samples, and he is at Castner Inho, right?
Yes, Castner Inho.
Okay. Oh, good. You guys are all chiming in and introducing yourselves. Great. Thank you so much for doing that. So we are excited to talk with you guys today, and I do hope that this is going to be as much a two-way communication as it can be. I'd love for you all to share your thoughts and ideas as we go through our slides together today. So our topic today is practical proficiency in a pandemic. Now what? And we are going to be providing you guys with the chat, a link to the recorded video, any resources or materials. We'll be adding those all into a folder for you guys. So you, at the end of this webinar, you're going to have a short survey that we'd love for you to just take a quick minute or two to complete. And once you do that, you'll be given a link to a certificate. You will also get an email tomorrow. So if you missed that and you don't have time to do the survey today and you want to just do it tomorrow, that's fine. You'll have access to a folder with all these things in it. It'll come through an email tomorrow for you as well. And the webinar is going to be posted on YouTube. So if there's anything that you want to go back and watch later or share with someone else, you'll have access to it. So all those things are coming. So don't worry. A lot of times people will come in, and if they come in later, they miss something they want to know. So you guys can tell them in the chat, everything's going to be there for them. Okay. So our essential question is, where do we go from here? Like we are still living in, I hesitate to call it post-pandemic because just since we started planning for this, there are new things coming out with new variants of the virus and uncertainty about what could happen. So it's almost maybe just a state of how we're going to have to deal with things for a while. And part of what we're going to talk about today is where we go from here and how do we accept where we are and how do we deal with that. So this is kind of what we're going to be grappling with. And I think grappling might be the real term for how we all have to handle this. So Grant and I would love to hear from you, and Grant, I would love to hear from you too. How has your year been so far? So just a temperature check, you guys. How are you guys feeling right now? Are you feeling like you're doing okay? Are you tired? Are you exhausted? Are you excited for a break? Like, how are you guys feeling right now? If you could think of one word that would describe how you feel right now, throw that word in the chat for us. Exhausted. I knew that was going to come up. How about you, Grant? How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I think my word at the beginning would be exhausted and overwhelmed. Right now, we just finished our trimester, and I would say relieved. That would be my word, relieved.
Yeah, you've met a milestone.
Yes.
You made it to the milestone.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people who are feeling exhausted. I see in the chat a lot of overwhelmed, challenged, heartbroken, unmotivated, yeah, sluggish. I was telling Grant the other day, I work with teachers in school districts all across the country every day, and I think this is what I'm hearing from everyone. And I honestly feel like this year has probably been harder than even last year in a lot of ways. Would you say you feel that way, Grant?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, to an extent, you didn't really expect it, right? You're like, oh my gosh, the whole COVID thing, the hybrid and virtual and all of the different learning, environments. And you're like, okay, this year should be better. And you're like, wait a second, why is this so much harder than I worked so hard last year just to make it work? And now it's even 10 times harder. Why is that the case? It's quite overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think too, it's kind of like when you burn a muscle out and, like if you have to hold something above your head and you keep holding it there for a long time, over time, your muscles start to burn out and then you have to keep holding it there and they start to shake and they start to feel weak. And it's kind of like everyone's been holding everything up for so long now. And that's where that exhaustion is set in. Yeah, I think people are agreeing in the chat. I think like you said, I think it took us all kind of by surprise because I think everyone kind of had these hopes that we were going back to normal-ish, whatever that might be. And it really hasn't been anywhere near normal. Normal has not been part of the equation. Well, I hope that you guys, as we talk about things, that you'll feel comfortable to share how you're feeling and what you're facing. So we can see that and can share with you. Okay, let me see if my mouse is going to work. Okay, so I'm going to start off talking to you guys about things, and then I'm going to flip it over to Grant. I just want to share some things based on some of the experiences that I've had this year working with teachers. And one of the things I wanted to share is a graphic that I've actually found myself referring to a lot. This is a graphic that is adapted from some research back in 1999. And it's about the typical phases that a new teacher goes through. And so if you look at this, everyone starts the year like super excited and pumped and enthusiastic and ready to go. And very quickly, you hit survival mode, like make it to the next day. And often by the time you get towards the end of October through December, it is like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Maybe this is the wrong job for me. What was I thinking? Why did I want to become a teacher? One of the things that I'm experiencing with people I'm working with this year is that even very experienced veteran teachers are going through these same phases again this year. even teachers who have had every trick in the book, they know all the things they can pull out and do or what have you, they're still going through these similar phases this year. I think that it's become surprising for some of them to be feeling this way again. So I'm curious to know of you guys out there in our chat. We are in December now. We are right at the rock bottom stage of these phases. How are you guys feeling? If you had to put maybe where you feel yourself along this graphic, even those of you who are experienced veteran master teachers, is there a place on this graphic where you feel like you might fit in, or do you know a teacher who maybe is experiencing this? Are there any of you guys out there? Yeah. Oh, Martha says her pre-service teachers didn't want to know or hear that their cooperating teachers are feeling the same way. I know, like they're supposed to be the masters, right? Hopefully, though, it will be affirmation that it really is hard out there right now. Disillusionment. Yeah. Oh, good. So you already, Dora says she's in a reflection stage. That's good. You're coming out of a stage of feeling rock bottom. I think one reason, Grant, I think maybe some teachers feel that like new teachers in these phases is because the whole environment has been new for everyone. The pandemic was not anything anyone had experience with. So it really has been like being a new teacher all over again for a lot of teachers.
There's been a lot of, I've seen graphics that says the last time these students had a normal year of school was like when they were in, 8th grade. Right. And so I have students still adjusting to high school who did a whole year of high school, like practically online last year. And they're still learning. There's so many adjustments that they have to make outside of just in the academics. Right.
Mm-hmm. Just social adjustments, right. And even just adjusting to getting back into a schedule, like a physical schedule every day. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. I'm just looking at some of the comments. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Veterans who have handled a whole lot are also still struggling. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's tough. And parents too. Yes, they're overwhelmed. I think students also, a lot of students out there are trying their very best and they're feeling overwhelmed too, trying to get back into the swing of things. So it's tough. I do think I'm hopeful that this graphic will hold true, and that hopefully we will come out of the pit area that everyone is in right now, and start to be able to feel a little bit rejuvenated and hit that reflection stage where Dora is already feeling like she's in a reflection stage, and be able to anticipate what comes next with a more maybe enthusiastic outlook on things. So one of the things that Grant and I were going to talk with you guys about is just some ideas or strategies for dealing with where we are. We are where we are. And I think that may be in part why some people are feeling disillusioned, because it's like reality has set in and you have to come to a place of just being able to accept that we are where we are. So one of the things that we talked about was about, let's see if I can get my mouse to click. Is it going to click? There we go. We talked a little bit about the proficiency cone. You guys are familiar with the actual cone of proficiency, right? And so it made me think about an analogy that I often use with parents when I talk with parents and with teachers as well about proficiency and how proficiency grows, because it's not a linear process, right? It's not like you can just say, oh, well, I've had 1 year of Spanish and I'm novice mid, and 2 years of Spanish and I'm novice high, and 3 years of Spanish, I'm intermediate low, and 4 years I'm intermediate mid, and 5 years I'm intermediate high. It doesn't work that way. It's not like a lockstep linear process. So much of your progression depends on your experience and how much time you've had in the language, how much input you've had, and how much opportunity for practice and output you've had, right? So I often talk to parents with this idea of a cone, of thinking of it like a sugar cone, and that we want to fill this cone with sprinkles to fill the cone. And if we think about the sprinkles as skills, as parts of language, as input, as practice, the more of that you put into the cone, the more sprinkles you pour into the cone, the more it's going to fill. And if you look at the bottom of the cone, it's going to take a lot fewer sprinkles to fill the bottom of the cone. Like you could go from novice low to novice high relatively quickly. You could fill that part of the cone quickly, but the higher you go, the more sprinkles you need. And you still have to have the ones in the bottom. You have to maintain the ones in the bottom, because if you take them out, you lose some of the amount that you're getting in there. So you have to continue to pour sprinkles, and the more you pour in, the higher your proficiency becomes. The wider and more skilled you are, and the deeper you're able to use language, more clear, more detailed, and so on. So if you think about how much time it takes, it's going to be very dependent on how many sprinkles you can access to fill your cone. So we were talking about this, and I was thinking about, what if we considered having a victory cone where we can maybe turn the tide a little bit and focus on filling our cone with even the tiniest, smallest sprinkles of success, and adding them up so that we can celebrate even the small victories. Because sometimes it seems like that may be all we have, or just the little tiny small victories. But if we count them, they count. Like if we put them into the cone and we don't forget about them, they count, right? So if we think about it as a victory cone, come on, computer, click, 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 click. It's trying. We have all these things. And I did what I told you I would do. I clicked too many times and it went too fast. You guys are experiencing the lag of hotspotting. There we go. Oh, no, still didn't.
There you go. You're good.
That probably went too far.
It's there.
Has it switched? There we go. Okay. So if you see the word cloud there, there's a gazillion words of things that could possibly be a victory that you could count. It could be just noticing and celebrating growth, no matter what that growth is. It could be a tiny little bit of growth. It could be a lot of growth. It could be growth in proficiency. It could be growth in maturity. It could be any kind of growth. Really taking the time to acknowledge these small victories and filling our victory cone, because I think that can empower us, but it can empower our students too, because I think they're facing this disillusionment as much as we are. I know my kids have had some tough moments this year as well. So as we think about celebrating the small victories, I have some ideas to share with you about maybe ways to collect these victories, because you have to pay attention to them. You can't just, like, I don't think they're just going to happen haphazardly. We kind of have to make them happen. And Grant and I talked about the other day, because it's not like they're just going to come to us. Sometimes we got to create an environment where that will happen, just like we have to create an environment where proficiency can happen. It has to be intentional. It has to be focused. So as we think about things that we might could do, journaling, a great writing activity, right? So I wanted to think of things that could maybe also reinforce certain skills that you maybe want to practice in class. So journaling might be one. reflecting on the lesson, reflecting on something they learned or some progress they may have made based on feedback that you've given them. It could be reflecting on gratitudes, something they're grateful for that may or may not be related to that class, but taking a moment to focus on it, celebrate it. Maybe you give them a focus question for the day when class starts, and they have to think about that question all through class and then reflect on it and journal just whatever they can. If they're novice and they can only do words, maybe they just journal words. If they're intermediate and they can do paragraphs, maybe they do paragraphs. You can set the task to be whatever it needs to be. Maybe they just journal some takeaways or something that they did that day or at home or whatever it may be. And some engagement strategies that you could use to have them talk about what they've journaled would be to either do a think, pair, share. Maybe they journal the last 5 minutes of class, and then the last minute they have a turn and talk, and they turn and tell their neighbors something that they journaled. Maybe they have a table talk if you have groups and tables. Maybe it's popcorn responses, and popcorn responses are like where the teacher just opens the floor and students can just popcorn out thoughts or words or answers or phrases, right? And these become small victories for you to put in your victory cone. Some other ideas I had while you wait for my thing to click, there we go, would also be to use these as exit slips. It could be that an exit slip is something they heard someone else say, because maybe they just had a hard time finding something to celebrate that day, but they could acknowledge a victory someone else had. It could also be that you have a victory cone in your classroom, and that if they use these journals, could be Post-it notes, and maybe they put something that they journaled on a Post-it note, and you actually fill the cone on the wall with these victories so that you start to build momentum and maybe turn the tide a little bit. And at the same time, you're practicing using the language in a very authentic way that builds community in your classroom and hopefully helps everyone feel a little bit better about something. And then also a few other things. I know when I was in China many, many years ago, one of the things that I really was impressed about was how they recognized students who did well by like this hall of honor, where people got to go in the hall of honor if they had gone on to do, amazing things. I got to thinking, what if we had a wall of honor that could just be about people who are community builders in their class? They're building community, they're encouraging each other, they're using language as much as possible, like the things that you want to value in your class for language, but also as students. They could go on the wall of honor, and maybe they're honored that week and their name and picture are up on the wall or something. Just ways to find a focus to be able to celebrate. So those are some of the ideas that I was thinking about that might grow from something tiny where we can focus on growth. Maybe not, we may not know, like they may not know what we think they should know coming in, but we may have to just take them from wherever they are, and where they are maybe all the way back down to here, when maybe they were supposed to be here in the middle. But we have to take them from wherever they are and then focus on growing them and celebrate every tiny celebration, every tiny victory along the way, because every little victory counts. So before I turn it over to Grant, he's going to share some ideas and some things that he's been doing in class. I did just want to give you a couple of food for thought. One is, I don't know if you all have ever heard the story about the wolves. It's a story that I have often used with my own family, my own children. And I've heard that it's a Cherokee Indian story. I'm not sure for sure, so don't quote me on that. But the idea is that this grandfather is talking with his grandson, and he tells his grandson there are two wolves inside each of us. One is a wolf that represents things like kindness and bravery and courage and love. The other one represents things like fear and hatred and greed and anger, and that we all harbor these wolves they both live inside of us. And the grandson asks him after he's thought about it a little bit, and he's like, so the grandfather told him these wolves are constantly at war with each other inside of us. And he says, well, which wolf wins? And the grandfather says, the one you feed. And so for me, that's a really powerful thing, because sometimes I have to stop and ask myself which wolf I'm feeding. Am I feeding anxiety? Today, did I feed anxiety when I was freaking out because I lost my internet connection? When we have a webinar today, I had to stop and think about, what wolf am I feeding? And what wolf are we encouraging and feeding for our students? So we have to think about monitoring our thoughts and monitoring our self-talk so that we celebrate the small victories and that we're feeding the good wolf. So Grant, I have some strategic approaches in here. I don't know if you want to talk about them or I can talk about them either way.
I'll let you take it.
Okay, I was just going to show you guys, if you want to think about figuring out where do we go from here and you don't actually know where here is, maybe you have a new student. I know we're this far into the year, you probably know where your kids are now, but some of you are going to get kids next semester that haven't had language in a long time, or who knows what they had when they had it. So figuring out where here is, these are some ideas for things that you can do that can be ongoing. One thing is to think about baseline assessments. So if you know where you want your kids to be in the end, you can give them tasks or assessments that assess what they have to know in the end, with the understanding this is not for grade, this is not for me to criticize you in any way, this is for me to find out, based on where we're going, where are you already? So that I don't have to reteach you things you already know. We can accelerate that process if you already know things, or maybe I have more to teach you and I need to calibrate what my goal is or what the target is. And then some of that can be ongoing, because you're going to be monitoring where they are by giving them tasks and giving them feedback and then nudging them up that I+1 every time, right? Just that next level up of skills that you want to focus on. So think about using your formative assessments to kind of calibrate where you are against where you're headed. We may have to accept that where we usually get to is just not a reality. And we may have to reset our goal. And that's going to have to be okay, because it is what it is, right? What we have to focus on are the victories and growing from wherever we are, focusing on growth, setting a vision, tracking progress, celebrating that progress is hopefully going to turn the tide a little bit and give some folks some encouragement. The other thing is to really have a focus on reflection, because I think if we stop and reflect on where we are and where we need to go, but we're helping our students to do the same thing, they're going to become more metacognizant of where they should be against where they are, and aware. And that awareness actually helps accelerate growth. So I think that those are some of the thoughts that I had to give you some ideas for strategy. So before I turn it over to Grant, do you guys have any ideas yourselves you'd like to share, or any feedback? You can throw that in the chat. I'd love to hear if you guys, like, I don't know, when I talk to teachers, usually I will come up with an idea and they come up with 10 better ideas than the idea I had, because that's how we synergize. So what ideas do you guys have that could fill your victory cone or help your learners shift their thinking to focusing on growth? What are you guys doing in your classrooms? Share your ideas in the chat.
As a little teaser, Dawn, the answer to that question is what I'll be talking about next, something that I do in my classroom for my metaphorical victory cone. Yes, both academically and sort of just with the students.
So you're going to get all kinds of answers to those questions coming up next. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yes, having students of the month. Awesome.
Mhm.
The Vous êtes super video. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Angela. I'll have to take a look at that. Awesome. As you guys think of things, keep throwing them in the chat for us, okay? And others will be able to benefit from that as well. So that'll be good. Grant, I'm turning the mouse over to you. I'm not going to touch it anymore.
Can I take
So
it
I won't
away?
mess up your presentation.
No. Can I revoke the privilege now?
You have revoked. You can revoke the privileges. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Let me just. I think for some reason it's acting a bit strange. I want to hold on. Is it okay if I stop sharing and reshare? I think that might
You
just.
can, or I just won't touch the mouse and you have control.
Well, because when I've been clicking, I can't access the chat. It just goes to the next. It like clicks through the thing. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna. Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing, and now I'm just gonna reshare my screen. And then, are we good? I think. Okay, good. I can see the chat. Okay, finally, good, awesome, done. Thank you so much for handing over the floor. It's been so fun working on this webinar with you, and now I am really excited to share about one of the strategies that I use for this victory. This victory cone that we've been talking about, and this finding out where students are, because how do we meet them? Where do we go from here? Right, the answer to that question. So I wanted to talk first about my school year just so far in general, just for a minute. So I'm at a new school. To make this year even harder, I'm at a new school and I have new students, and I've learned a lot so far in the very just the first 3 months that I've been here. Being at a new school, I have new students, right? And I've learned very quickly their class level, Chinese 2, does not equal their proficiency, as Dawn said. Right? It's not linear. It's a totally different path for each student. Social skills were practically non-existent at the beginning of this year. They had a rather poor disposition towards school and learning, and that's probably a combination of different factors throughout the year. They're socially and academically, and what happened last year and COVID and all sorts of things going on. Obviously, they also have external pressures and overwhelming demands from their parents and from just society in general. And many of my students work as well. And all of these things combined make for an extremely difficult teaching experience. So you're standing there at the front of the room, you learn all of these things, you're looking at your kids, and you're just like, what do I do? What do I even do about this? How do I conquer any of this? Well, for me, the first step, it took a couple of weeks, but really was acceptance, right? This is the hand that I've been dealt. This is the situation in front of me. I have to accept it. What can I do with what's in front of me, right? So then meeting students where they are, right? How do we do that? How do we, if you ask, where do we go from here? Well, we have to find the here first, as Dawn said. And one of the examples that I want to talk about is using free writes. And free writes are an example of a baseline assessment, finding out where students are. So what is a free write? I'm going to show some examples of what a free write is. But first, it's a timed assessment where students write as much as they can in the target language on any prompt with no external resources. So they do not get to use, notes that they've had in class or lists, vocabulary lists, whatever you give them, whatever they've been able to sort of accumulate over the period of that they've been learning for help. It's all what they use it's all what they know, it's all what they know, the language that they know at that given moment, right? So I might see my students, I say 10 minutes, write as much as you can in Chinese. And it can be guided, of course. You should write about your hobbies, or unguided. You can write about anything. And this will obviously depend on their level as well, right? At the lower level, for me, my level 1 students, I just say, okay, write as much as you can, right? Write as much as you possibly can in Chinese. Whereas to my level 3s, my level 4s, obviously they've accumulated enough at that point where they can sort of really hone in on specific areas, right? And so if we did a unit on food, and then we're starting a new unit on, I don't know, technology, and I say write as much as you can versus write about technology, well, there's going to be a difference in what they can write about. And so this is just, a matter of personal choice and how you want to, integrate these into your classes. So again, free writes are an example of a baseline assessment. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about free writes and how I use them and the big and small victories I have had with them in my classes. Okay, here we go. So why free writes then? Well, you find the starting point. For me, at the beginning of this year, I did this with all of my classes, not my level 1s. Obviously, they couldn't really do much. But my 2, 3s, and 4s, I told them the second day of school, I said, write as much as you can. Because I had no idea. I had no idea where those students were. I had to find where they were. It's very simple and it's low pressure. And the student just says, okay, I just have to write as much as I can. It's not a test. It's not, it's not input based, it's output based. So it's really just dependent on what they've acquired and what they know. And it helps us find the starting point. And for example, another thing that I learned, class level does not equal proficiency, as I have stated. So these are things that the teachers and the students can learn from doing free write. And you also see, well, what language has been acquired? Is any language that the student produces in their free write, 99%, it's going to be a language that they've acquired and they have down, and they know it, right? Something maybe that you went over last week, and they say, oh, I remember this certain phrase that we learned, and they put it out in their free write. Fine. But most of it is going to be stuff that they've acquired and attained and have, stuck with them throughout their learning experience of the language. And then the last part of why free writes is pairing free writes with reflection. This is really it's the icing on the cake for me. It's the evidence of the victory of their progress. Once you do your first free write in September, and I'm going to show some examples of this soon, and then do another one a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, and then you say, okay, hey, now you did one reflection. You did your first reflection in September. You just did your last one, your third one in November. Now reflect. What progress do you see? What do you think? How do you feel? How has your confidence changed? Anything like that, really open-ended. But when you read these as a teacher, it's very just, oh, wow, my students are actually learning. They can see their progress, right? And it's a little and big victory at the same time. Sometimes depending on the student, but really powerful. And we'll see some examples of that. So that's why free writes. So then once we have our starting point using these free writes, then we can make adjustments. We can get into the whole teaching part, right? We design our new lessons based on what our students need. I see that my level 2 students, some of them couldn't even produce a sentence, right? And I say, wow, we are not at level 2 right now. Some of them could. How do I adjust based on that? If half of my class is at one place and another half is at another place, that's going to be pretty hard. But now I know that. I know what the baseline is. I know where they are. As I said, my level 2 students needed a complete refresher, and they knew it too. And so this is the exhausting part. It's not hard. It is exhausting, right? Because for me, I had to create so many new lessons, which costs time. It costs effort. It costs my energy. And I was doing this almost every single day in September and even October, right? Constantly making new things so that we could be where we could be on track for where we wanted to go based on their level, right? As much as we might want to, we can't always recycle past lessons. We have to analyze the situation, say, this is what's in front of me. Where do we go from here? We take that and we use it to form our future lessons and what the goal is, what is essential in the unit, and what we want our students to learn. All of this, again, comes down to the theme of acceptance, right? We accept this is where my students are. Do I wish that they knew a little bit more? Sure, of course, but I can't change that, right? The fact of the reality is that last year, so many different things happened. This is where they are right now. And this is the only thing that I can do that's realistic and practical for their proficiency. So we have our baseline assessment. Now we teach. We do the whole teaching thing, right? We do the assessments. We do the lessons. We do the formative assessments, summative assessments, games, anything that you do. This is where that all occurs. I'm not going to go into big detail about what teaching entails. You know what that is. But once you have the baseline and you know your goal, you know where you want them to get to, you know what you want them to be able to do in the language, then you can do the whole teaching thing. To continue then, once we can go back to free writes. And so now we can use those free writes to track our students' proficiency. We have the baseline assessment. We have our starting point, right? We teach, we assess, we teach, we assess. And obviously, I'm not saying by any means, I'm not saying that free writes is the only method of assessment. You combine the different modes of communication, you use different methods of assessments, and you integrate those into your teaching. You guys all know that. But then I pair these with monthly free writes, right? Because that is how I really measure the progress because it's so low pressure, right? And it shows what that particular student knows at the time instead of just demanding them to meet some certain task that you have. For every student. And so soon we will see some examples of those. Before we get to that though, I wanted to show some free write and reflection prompts. These are the prompts that I give my students, and then we'll see some examples. So the free write, take 10 minutes and write as much Chinese as you possibly can. And this was for my upper level students. You should be able to form sentences and paragraphs, right? They shouldn't just be typing random words. That should be their goal, right? But aside from that, that's all that they see. Write as much as you can. And then afterward, I have them reflect in English, of course. Reflect on the progress you've made. How do you feel? What have you learned? How do you feel about learning Chinese? And then around 200 words because you want them to, say a little bit more. So these are the prompts that I give them. Very straightforward. It takes about, 20 minutes to do in class. And the results are pretty exciting. and they make you feel victorious. For example, so I have 4 little slides that I want to show here. On the left side, this is from my level 3 and 4 class. On the left side is September 8th. On the right side is November 30th. That was 2 days ago. That was on Tuesday. And then the bottom part is a little quote that I took directly from the student's reflection. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can see the difference, right? You can see the big difference from on the left and on the right. And the other thing that I want to add with these free writes is that the grammar is not perfect, right? The sentences are not perfect by any means, but I'm not really super concerned about that. For me, it's about the production. Look at what they can produce in the language, and you just see the difference between the left one and the right one. I will show another one. Again, right here. This is also from my 3 and 4 class. You can see left side, that's what she could produce at the beginning of the year. Right side, that's what she could do 3 months later. And I see that, and she sees that, and it's wow. Wow, look at what you can do. I'm really pleased with how far I've come. And I read that, victory. That is a victory. Seeing the writing, seeing that she knows that she's proud of it, big victory. 2 more. This is my level 2 class at the beginning of the year. And on the right, what we could do just 2 days ago. And one of the things that's even kind of funny that is another victory for me is, not just seeing how much he wrote, but that he's able to say something like he created his own dialogue. Oh, we should go to McDonald's. The next person says, I can't come, I'm busy, crying emoji. I mean, come on. It's just, it's fun. It's funny. It's great. The kid is being creative. It's just so great to see, right? And it's the little victories like that. Dawn, I see you're on. Did you want to add something?
I was just going to say that seeing this and seeing what your students' reflections were, it like almost makes me very emotional, because I don't think if you were not intentional about having them do this reflection, I don't know that it would even make you feel as empowered to do this with them. Like it's just a really incredible process that I think internalizes a lot of strong practices for healthy living, period, when we're learning something. So in addition to what you're teaching them in Chinese and be able to do in Chinese, this practice is teaching them some incredible skills about learning and reflecting. So I just had to put that in there.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Don. I fully agree. I mean, I love the role of reflection when it's used properly, and not just language learning, but really learning in any sort of case. Like, what have you learned from this? Because it gets your students to think, like you said, it makes them more metacognizant, and it's so valuable. And no, not just in school, but just as a human being. Once you leave the classroom, being able to reflect and think back and see, oh wow, I made such big improvements. I feel so good about that. Right? It's the victories that we've been talking about. I have one more, even, believe it or not. Again, this was my level 2, I think. And yeah, so I'll keep this up here for a little more. At the beginning of the year, I would not have been able to read most of what I just wrote, right? And it's so great to see. I'm gonna check the chat real quick. Reflection is powerful. This is so wonderful, helpful, and so concrete for students. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, it's really great to see. I did this digitally. Okay, so again, level 2, this is what he did on the left side, and then on the right side just 2 days ago. And I'm even going to show reflections that I did today. I will show. So again, you see the power of the free, you see the power of the reflection. And the thing that I love about this, Dawn, and everyone watching, is that it's so simple. It is so simple. Just this, nothing fancy involved. Write, reflect, write, reflect. That's it. The teaching part, that's hard, that's complex. This, the free writes, so simple. So then, what do we get from our free writes and our reflections? What are the outcomes of these things? Well, one, each student sees their own progress with no comparison to anyone else. It's super student-centered. There's no saying, oh, what'd you get? Oh, I got an 85. What'd you get? I got a 91. It's their work. This is what they can do with the language. It's student-centered, and that is essential for a language class, especially given the pace and the differences that students learn at. Because we all know that, right? We'll have students that get it right away. We have students that take 2 weeks to get it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how the learning process is. As I mentioned, little and big victories for both students and teachers. I read these things. I tell my students, I read all of your reflections. And it makes you feel so good inside. It's just, oh, we did something, right? And all of the struggles that you had, all of the tough days, you read this, I feel so proud of myself. I'm learning so much. Chinese is a great class. What more could you ask for? And it's coming from the source, the students, the people you are teaching. Students take pride in their learning, and then no need to add it on value of reflections, right? We've talked about this, it's just so critical for your students to do this. Checking time. We're good on time. So last part is just showing the free writes on extempore. So I want to just show two little parts to this. I'm going to escape. Am I still sharing? I am still sharing. Okay. I'm going to escape. I'm going to go here, extempore assessment. I just want to show what the free writes can look like on the extempore platform, and then what it looks like for the teacher once it's graded as well. So extempore as an assessment platform, you can create listening, reading, speaking, writing assessments. This one, free write, obviously a written assessment. I've also told my students that we can do free talks as well, where you just say, okay, start talking, say as much as possible. As you can imagine, a little more demanding and a little scarier for students. But you can do that as well. So for a free write, I tell my students, this is the description, this is what they see. I can do them. My students today, my level 1 class, did this all on their phones. They click in and they see the prompt. This is our first free write. This was for my level 1 class that I did. Write as much as you can in Chinese about anything you want. Just keep writing. Of course, make sure your text makes sense. Right? I did not want them writing random characters. At this point, they can form sentences and questions. You'll see the timer is here. Make sure I have my keyboard. Okay. Timer is here. I click in, and as soon as I start typing, hello, it goes, right? Oh my keyboard, or whatever. But you see, I can start typing. I can write as much as I possibly can. And the timer goes, and as soon as students are done, they can click submit, and they're done. They finish the free write. Right? Most of my students, they went the entire 10 minutes, and once the timer hits 0, it automatically submits for them, and then they're done. The assignment is done. Right now, I want to stop sharing, and I'm going to change the sharing preferences again, as I want to just share a portion of my screen so that we don't see. Hold on. Sorry, Don. I'm just trying to get this right. I want to share.
Oh, you're fine.
I don't want to just share. Go ahead, Dawn. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we had a question, and I answered it in the Q&A, but it was asking about if this would be recorded. And so it is going to be posted for you guys. It'll be on our YouTube. So you'll get an email about that tomorrow. So don't worry, you'll get it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I am now, I'm moving our little Zoom thing. I am now on my page here. 1 second. Sorry, everyone. This. Okay. Okay, so here I am. I am going to move this, and then we can see. There we go. I am now on the grading page of extempore. Is this clear, Dawn? Give me a thumbs up real quick. Okay, good. Thank you.
I can see it. Someone had asked if you could zoom out just a little bit, but I don't know if you can see it now.
I just did.
Thomas. Okay.
Okay. So anyways, though, this is I'm just protecting student information because it has their names up and everything. But you can see here, I have my grade book. This has a list of the assignments at the top. And on the right side, I can see, this is our snap grader. I can see the prompt here. And then I can see my student submission right here. This was my level 1 student who could not produce a single character in Chinese at the beginning of the year. And then I can scroll through and I can show the next student. I'm not going to show the whole list because some of it has names in there I don't want to show, but you get the idea. And when I go through these, you can see this the highlight area here highlights the student involved. And then you can click through and see their next prompt. So when you grade, and I can share this part, sorry about that. When you grade, you can add comments, you can add feedback. I can say, wow, you should be so proud, something like that. Anything you want to do. And then the student can see that feedback as well on their side. So again, with the grading period, with the gradebook page we have on extempore, you can see the student's response, you can see the prompt, you can give feedback, and you can go through them and score them with ease. Dawn, I will pass it back to you. I think. You want me to still share?
Maybe.
Okay, that's fine.
Sometimes sharing the mouse on this, especially when I've got such a glitzy connection, we'll see. So I just wondered, in asking you guys who are out there watching, if you guys got any ideas from any of the things that we shared today about what we've talked about, the big word that's actually coming up on the slide in just a minute is acceptance. We have no choice. We have to accept where we are. And And in reality, I think Thomas and I taught Thomas, listen to me. I just looked down and saw his name in the chat and I said his name again. Grant and I talked about this in depth when we were talking about this webinar, because in reality, I mean, we really should be doing this anyway. Like, this really should be the way we function all the time, is to focus on this is where we are. And we just have to accept this is where we are and take them as far as we can take them. It really is best practice to do that, because then you're acknowledging where they are, but you're also celebrating the victories all along the way and getting them as far as they can go. We got some questions in the chat. Grant, I don't know if you can see the chat. Are you able to see?
I can't. I gave you control, so I don't.
Okay, so in the chat, some of the questions that we have are, when you do the free write and extempore, are students able to see the first and last to compare? And is there room for reflection?
Yes. So the thing that I would say is, yes, when you look at the student portfolio, I did 2 webinars on these previously, if I may. But the student has a portfolio section where all of their submitted work goes, and they can easily go back, find the assessment, look at it, find the other reflection, look at it, and then compare them. And they can do a reflection just like you saw that they did. Just as a written assessment, they can do a reflection as well. Yes.
Awesome. So maybe we can put a link to the webinars that you did before, showing how that works.
Yeah, I can do that.
That would be great. Another question that we had is, are the actual rubrics in extempore?
We have certain assessments which carry the rubrics. When you create an assessment, you can customize the rubric, and you can add in any rubric that you want. I believe we do have 1 or 2. It might be ACTFL specific. I'm not 100% sure. But again, you can customize your rubrics for whatever, whether it's listening, reading, writing, speaking, to add that type of rubric in there. Yes.
So that answered, I think, Victor, maybe that answered your question, because his question was, is there a clickable or customizable rubric in there?
Yes, there is. Yep.
And that portfolio is an extempore. That's a question.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yes.
So all of the students' completed work and their submitted assignments go directly to a completed section, and that functions as their portfolio. We are working on a more bona fide portfolio, which would show all of the progress and how much they're producing, and how much they're speaking, how much they're writing. But yes, we do. The portfolio section is entirely in extempore. Yes.
And is it possible for that portfolio to carry from year to year?
Yes,
Does it follow a student?
with the student. It stays with the student. Yeah, and that's something that's really great about extempore, is that when you have a student in Spanish 1 and then they move to Spanish 2, and the teacher in Spanish 2 is wondering, I wonder how much Dawn can speak Spanish. Oh, here's their extempore account. And they can look and see directly, okay, this is the student's ability in the class. Yes.
So Kathy Shelton has a question. Her question is the portfolio free, paid, or freemium?
It comes with the platform. Which has different pricing tiers depending. We have a free account. We also have a premium account. But the portfolio is not a special feature. It comes with the platform as you do it. Yes.
It's a good answer. Okay. Yeah. And then Victor asks if it is SOPA or COPA compliant.
I believe so. I am honestly not the person to ask that question. I don't know why we wouldn't be, but I'm pretty sure. I don't want to make any guarantees, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that if you guys reach out to extempore, they'll be able to answer all of those questions. And
Ron, thank you for posing these while I'm chatless.
But it's good. I know it's good. Well, you need to be able to focus on answering them anyway. And Amelia, oh, hey, Amelia. I haven't seen you in so long. Amelia Grossa is a French teacher, and she's one of my former colleagues. Her question is if you can record speaking instead of writing. And I think you said that you can.
Yes. Our name is Extempore, the speaking practice app. So yes, you can record speaking. Yes, absolutely. We have all sorts of things. Contact us, look at our YouTube, look at all of our resources. We do speaking. That is who we are. Yes.
That is one of the coolest things that they do. If you guys want them to give you like an overview of all the things that you can do in extempore, it's worth your time. Grant and others, but Grant is outstanding. He will be able to do that for you. So if you guys have other questions, please don't hesitate to throw those in the chat. I did also want to just look, we had a Q&A come up. I want to make sure that I see what that is. Yes, so Cecilia's asking about the YouTube channel. I put in the chat, I'll plug it in there again. Let me see if I can maybe do that right now. All of the everything, all of the handles and chats and Wakelet and YouTube, everything is there. If you go to morelearning.avantassessment.com, there, our YouTube channel link is there for you, and it will be posted there tomorrow, and you guys can share it. You will also get an email. You'll get an email tomorrow that will have a link to a folder, and you'll get a certificate of attendance for coming today. You'll have a link to the website with YouTube, and we will also put this chat in there for you guys so that you guys be able to see all the things that people shared during the chat today. Kathy asks if there's room for reflection in the same place as students write.
Good. I have the chat done. We're good.
Oh, you got it now. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I see. You just answered. I hadn't even gotten that far yet. Okay. Awesome. Well, we are about, oh my gosh, and our time is almost up. Grant, this has flown by. Like, literally, I was not at all worried about you and I filling an hour. We've done a lot of talk in the last few weeks. So I guess if we had to leave you guys with anything, I think one word I would say is acceptance, but also victory. Like, celebrate the victories, create your victory cones. If you guys decide to do a victory cone in your classroom, if you do, will you please send me a picture of it? I would love to see if someone does one on a bulletin board, or even if it's a virtual digital one, please send it to us. We'll put it on our website. We'll put it with the webinar. I would love, love, love to see you guys celebrating the small victories so that we can dig out of this pit of disillusionment and finish the year strong. That's my hope. That is my hope. So I'm going to just put here, just so don't forget, just so you guys know, you're going to get the email, you're going to get the links. And thanks, you guys. Oh, y'all are so nice. Small victories matter. Yes, they do. It's good to see so many familiar names in there. Hey, Carmen. I hope you guys have a great evening. And Grant, it's been so fun doing this with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's do it again sometime, Dawn. What do you say?
Yes. And you know what? If we get some artifacts from some people of some things that they do, maybe we can include that in our next webinar.
That would be fantastic.
That would be awesome. That would be so much fun. Well, thanks everyone. I'll go to the last slide just to be official. There we go. I can't believe it. My internet lasted
yes
through the whole webinar. Yay! That's a victory. I'm so glad. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening, and I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday and that you get to rest, relax, get refreshed, and come back and be ready for rejuvenation for the second half of the year. Let's see if I can figure out now how to move things around. There we go. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.